Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt. Last week we covered all of the coolest and most interesting features of this GR86, but now we're here at the end of our week with the car, so we're hitting the highlights, the best and the rest, starting with the rest. The first thing we have to talk about is the isolation. And again, this one's kind of difficult to talk about due to the nature of the car and the price point, but it's pretty loud and it's pretty raw here in the cabin. The exhaust, yeah, it's loud. It kind of drones on the highway, but it does sound a lot better than it did before. It's about $1,700, which is a bit expensive, but you'll be the one to make that decision. This also has the premium package, which is another $2,000 from the base, and it's hard to call this thing day-to-day premium, but it's better than Subaru, which calls their base trim premium. Number two, we're going to talk about rear seats. This is another one that's kind of hard to put on the bad side because there's two sides to the story. On one side, it's nice to have the extra space back here, but calling this a 2+2 is a bit silly. There's literally no legroom with the front seats where they should be, so I find it funny that they even have floor mats back here. You could put a baby seat back here with the ISOFIX points though. So again, pros and cons for the back seat. Obviously, headroom's an issue. Now, number three, we're going to talk about the interior. I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here, but it really is just hard to complain about anything with the price point in mind here. We've already talked about some of the interior fit and finish and how it's not exactly Rolls-Royce level, but that's not really what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is for this new, it's not really new anymore, generation of GR86, the updates just seem kind of lazy. From a design perspective, this interior is nearly identical to the old car. The steering wheel is a little bit skinny, and the cup holders are hidden in the center consoles, so you really don't have a good place to put your phone, and if you have some drinks back there and you're shifting into fourth or sixth, you might hit your elbow on whatever you have in the cup holder. But once again, it's really hard to complain about any of this stuff with the price point in mind. So let's talk about all the good stuff going on here with this 86. Undeniably though, the best thing about this car is the way that it drives. This thing is really lightweight. It's got a brilliantly neutral chassis that's, I guess I've said it before in previous years that I've done this video, but it's really the chassis from the ground up that's the best part of this car. The chassis is super balanced, it's really light, the steering is really tactile because it's light, it doesn't need to be electronically boosted so much, so you actually have a sense of what the car is going to do. It's a strut front car with a multi-link rear end suspension setup, so you will get a little bit of understeer toward the limit, but the initial turn-in, especially with these adjusted dampers and this Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tire, you have great front-end turn-in, and then you can use the throttle to kind of learn how to steer with the back end, to steer with power. And that's what I think is so nice about this car. It really lets you learn the techniques of high-performance driving in a way that's not scary or intimidating. It's a beautiful and brilliant way to learn track driving, learn good techniques without going 1,000,000 miles an hour and spending $1 million. And that's what I continue to love about this car, but just that comes with trade-offs on the street, obviously. And number two, we're going to talk about this engine. Now, this new engine is a lot better than it was in the last generation car. The old engine displaced just 2 liters, whereas this new one displaces 2.4. Your horsepower is up 25 to 228, and your torque is 185 pound-feet. But the big fix was the torque hole in the middle of the rev band. This new engine now feels punchier at lower speeds and at lower revs, making it way more drivable from a day-to-day perspective, even if you're not on track. And number three, we're going to touch briefly on styling. I know that this and the Subaru BRZ are very, very similar, but I will say that I think this one looks a little bit better. Here, this car is finished in steel, not silver, but steel. And your running lights scream very baby Supra to me. And all of your aero is functional here as opposed to the Supra we just mentioned. You've got upgraded 18-inch wheels wrapped in PS4 tires for your premium package. And your premium package also gets you that really exaggerated rear wing. And of course, you've got that $1,700 dual exhaust that's, well, it's quite shouty. But if you want to know more about some of the other accoutrements going on in the exterior here, make sure to check out our feature tour video that we posted last week. And number four, we're around back talking about practicality. We talked earlier about how impractical the rear seats are, but you still have them to put babies or whatever else in. And of course they fold to give you more trunk space. And the trunk here has kind of a small opening, but it's actually pretty big, especially with the rear seats down. All in all, this thing is worlds more practical than the Miata we were in last week. And number 5, I know we put the interior on the con side of the video twice, but it's not all bad here. You get fun Easter eggs in your infotainment system, like date lists for birthdays and anniversaries. And you've got other weird roadside icon quirks and Easter eggs, so make sure to check out our feature tour for that. But this is the premium package, which means you get pleather and Alcantara seats. You've even got Alcantara headrests for your seats. The seats are then heated, and you've got Alcantara on your door upper and above your cluster, although I'm not exactly sure who asked for that. But you do get a fully digital cluster, which is really nice. And your infotainment is a sensible 8 inches. You don't have any native navigation, but you have wired Apple CarPlay, which is really all that I'm looking for. And just to put the cherry on top, the GR start button here lights up for a little added drama. And number 6, we're going to talk price. We've referenced this a number of times already, but this is a lot of car for your money. All the 86s start at about $29,000. This is the premium, which is the one you should get, and that starts at about $31,000, so an extra $2,000. And this car specifically, as tested, is about $34K. But you really don't need several of the add-ons. You don't need the trunk rubber bracing protection thing. You don't need the side blade, that's another almost 200 bucks. And you probably don't need the $1,700 exhaust. It does have a tendency to drone a bit, and you could probably find something on the aftermarket with a valve that you can turn on and off for similar money, maybe even a bit less. So you can skip some of that stuff and really have something really well put together from the ground up for about $32K. So at the low 30s then, this is a lot of car, considering the Miata last week we were in was 40 grand as tested. And this is way faster and more practical. So that's the best and the rest of the Toyota GR86. I really, really do love this car. It is the de facto sports car under, let's say, $50,000 or whatever a Boxster Cayman costs these days. So it's a lot of car for the money. You just have to be ready to make some of those trade-offs and compromises when you're buying a sports car, thoroughbred sports car for under $35,000. But thanks to Toyota for letting us have a go. Thank you to you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. It's a bigger engine, it's more powerful, it is faster, but it's still by no means wildly quick. Again, we went from 2 liters to 2.4. It is still the Boxer 4-cylinder from Subaru, so nice low mounting position, keeps the weight low. Again, the balance is something that we'll talk about a little bit later. That's what you really get in this car. That's really, really rewarding. In a straight line, not wildly exciting. 228 horsepower, up about 185 pound-feet of torque. So it's not gutless, but it's not gonna thrill you at a drag race. But again, this car has never really been about that. This car has been all about, Jesus. This car has been all about the corners. The other thing that I'll talk about is we have the 6-speed manual here. And this, like the Miata, doesn't have rev matching, but this is a joy to rev on your own. This car 2 years ago, when I had it as a press car for a week, was really when I kind of started to learn heel and toe downshifting. And I'm by no means like perfect at it, but a lot better than I was. But it's just so much fun, and it's so rewarding to row your gears in this thing. Now I will say, in relation to the Miata that we were in last week, and I'll kind of settle it down here to talk about this. In relation to the Miata last week, this transmission is a lot less forgiving, especially when it's cold, before everything's had a chance to heat up. This is gonna jerk you around a bit more. But for this next point, we're gonna hold this. We're now in track mode. We've got our gauge cluster that's changed. We've got traction off. And now we're gonna talk about the best part of this car. It's the balance. We'll head into this corner. Easy to downshift. Perfect. And then this is it right here. The balance on power steps out beautifully. That's what you get here. That's what you're paying for. That is the beautiful part of this car. See? It's not gonna hold my hand. It's not gonna baby me if I miss a shift or if I miss a rev. But it's a beautifully balanced chassis. The grip here is great. It is a strut front. It is not a double wishbone like the Miata was, but it's just good. The chassis is so good that it translates grip to those PS4 tires so well. Oh, multi-link rear, Torsen LSD out back, rear wheel drive, Pilot Sport 4 tires. This is the beautiful part of this car. It's such a well-balanced chassis. It steps out so naturally and organically. If you are, again, and I don't want to keep positioning this car as like a getting to know you or getting to know you manual edition or anything like that, but if you are interested at all in actually pursuing like track or high performance driving, and you want something that you can absolutely get to the limit and experience what a car is like at its limit in a safe manner without feeling like you're gonna wrap it around a tree at 100 miles an hour, this is the car to get. The chassis is beautifully balanced. It will make you shift properly. You can understand the balance of a car and how it's gonna react under certain circumstances. And that's what I really, really like about this car.